I thought we'd have more men.
We still have our objective. You take a company to the James Street entrance. I'll go in the Rialto side and I'll meet you in the middle. Cathal. Good night, Rilat.
Agus Satain.
Ogli na Heron. At midday, the dream we have held for so long will become a reality. The Irish Republic will be proclaimed today at 12 noon, Easter Monday, the 24th of April, 1916. Simultaneous with the action we are about to undertake, armed divisions of the Army of the Republic will occupy dominating points throughout the city. Men, it is our task to take the South Dublin Union. We must hold it at all costs to the very end. I pray God's blessing upon you all. Good night, Rilin. Agus go séireann tí a éire.
The Rialto entrance is taken, and I've left Irvine and most of his company guarding the gate. McCarthy is in Rose Distillery with about 20 men. How did you get on?
Good. James's gate is barricaded and fortified.
Right.
We can't hold the whole damned place, not with the amount of men we have.
What do you suggest, Lieutenant Cosgrave?
What about the night nurse home? It's solid. There's only the one entrance. It overlooks Mount Brown, Brookfield Road, and the Rialto Gate. If we fortify it properly, it'll take a whole battalion to get through.
He's right. Let's do it.
Move out!
Eamonn Ceannt is by far the least well known of the members of the military council that planned the rising and of the signatories to the proclamation. It's clear that this man is a separatist to his fingertips. This is a man who really is a physical force Republican, who believes that the only thing that the British understand is being talked to from the barrel of a gun.
Eamonn Ceannt was born in the town of Ballymoe in County Galway on the 21st of September 1881. He spent his first 3 years in the town barracks, where his father, James Ceannt, was stationed as an officer in the RAC. When his father retired from the force, the family moved to Dublin, and it was here in the Christian Brothers School on North Richmond Street that Eamonn Ceannt took his first steps on the road to becoming a nationalist.
It's interesting to note that if you look at the 1916 rebellion leaders and, of course, the rank and file, most of them, the vast majority of them, were all ex-pupils of the Christian Brothers. They turned out very well-educated young men who were indoctrinated almost by the idea of a nationalist Ireland.
Well, chár a sprag sprid a náisiúnacha sin éireann ag deireadh néo-hísteag ná Comóra, seachtaíoch nócha hocht, agus cogan na mórach san Africas. Chuir Eamonn Ceannt dárad son, leach sé páirt a gcuid an Comóra, agus na haunta son is cosúil gur chroch sé bratach na mórach in chrán na gádaín féin, rud ná réite grómhór lena athair. Go luath rééis dó an scoil ágant an son chuir sé isteach a gunna na Gaeilge. Ag an am son has to go chunna na Gaeilge an Gaeilge chuimhnú agus íochar chun cín mar hanga bheo. Ina haunta son bhí si me an gunra i ngnéthe eile de chultúr na hÉireann mar haunta sa cheol agus sa rince. Nís maidide le héimeann féin bhí si meige sa tanga, ach bhí anna híimeige sa cheol chomá, hain sé uirla sí agsúla, ach bhí sim faoi lethe gais na Píomh-Bhuileán, agus bhainigh sé féin agus cara leis Edward Martin cumann na Bíobrí im leat lia sa bhliain 1900.
I think Ceannt did see the music as equally valid in ways as another aspect of the whole Gaelic League idea. And in fact, the Pipers Club is referred to, when it was founded, as being an offshoot of the Gaelic League. So it could easily have just been an appendage, but Ceannt kind of, his input into it made a much greater impact than it otherwise would have, you know. And he also shaped his policy to a large extent he laid great emphasis on finding the old players wherever they were. The club used to write round to the secretaries of Gaelic League branches all over the country. Have you any old pipers from your area? Give us the name and we'll pay their fare up to Dublin for the Oireachtas or the Feis Ceoil and that. So that means that people actually heard these old players, and cylinder recordings were made of them in 1899. So we have about a dozen cylinders of people. In Martin Riley's case, the great Galway piper, he was born in 1832, so he was about 67 when he was recorded. So you can see these links going back to Ceannt's time. It's not often seen that if he hadn't been as active as he was, an awful lot would have been lost. You know, that at one stage, piping, if half a dozen people had died or had otherwise stopped playing or, you know, simply emigrated, the tradition could easily have collapsed.
Ceannt was a talented piper himself, and in 1908 he accompanied a group of athletes representing Ireland at the Papal Sports in Rome. Ceannt led the Irish contingent out onto the field, and the Pope was so taken with the sound of Ceannt's pipes that he requested a personal audience with the Irish team.
Hug Dinnegan led the Eamonn Ceannt agus Hólmar chur na PB in Ardú agus ag tosnú agus bhí sé ag scradál mar bhí na Pimrí ag tosnú agus bhfuil sé isteach sa siomra as ar ggóir agus bharseáil sé 8 nó 10 uair suas agus síos as cór an fápa.
Massive. Mahu done, mahu. A chuirde bhile marrá, well, tá fáilte róh go léir dosach agus cécho buíochas atá mé bhfuil si go léir an seo nocht. Tá sé iontach slú mór gaile eáil in éon seomra bháin ag chur cultúr na hÉireann chun cín.
Through his involvement with the Gaelic League, Ceannt became more committed to the nationalist movement and came into contact with many of the leading cultural nationalists of the day, including men like Owen McNeill and Patrick Pearse.
Bhí na daoine céanna go minic ran fáirteach ins na glúiseachtaí seo go léir. Cur gás daoine a ghlach páirt i gConradh na Gaeilge chuadar isteach sin féin lo nó máil, daoine a ghlach páirt in Airclan na Manistrach, chula hans gur chlóriúch iad as Conradh na Gaeilge. So mar a harlíonn go minic in san tír seo, ba iad na daoine céanna bhí chun tosaigh go minic a glúiseach cultúrtha a bhí an seachas glúiseacht folitiúil. Agus dúirt Standish O'Grady an fear a dail sig leabhar Cúchulainn in sna 1870. There'll be a cultural movement. It won't be very important. Then there'll be a political movement. It will be quite important. Then there will be a military movement, and it will be very important indeed. Bhealach déad thárá gur mar sin a hála sé ón bhliain 1900 amach go dtí 1960.
Lads, get them bags upstairs to HQ. Start sandbagging the windows. That's it, men. I want that stairs barricaded and secured. Carl, I'm putting you in charge of this barricade. Nothing gets up or down those stairs.
How will I still breathe?
The South Dublin Union was a vast workhouse complex that covered 52 acres. It was located next to the British barracks at Richmond and Island Bridge, and also overlooked the Quays and Kingsbridge Station, or Houston Station as it is known today. This was the main point of entry into the city for British reinforcements arriving from the Curragh.
Many of the devolved garrisons were chosen with one view only: to delay the approach of British military. Hence the attacks on the rail lines, hence the barricading of the arterial roads into Dublin on the north side, hence the establishment of a garrison in the South Dublin Union and the forecourts to impede the progress of various British forces located in the satellite barracks around Dublin, and was always a heavily garrisoned capital city, from getting into the centre of their communications.
In 1899, Ceannt secured a position with Dublin Corporation as a treasurer. It was a well-paid job, and Ceannt was a hard-working, dedicated employee, but the work left him feeling unfulfilled.
Bíam sé me hir fahan lei. Ní hawli a bhíam díwín ná leisgúil, ní hagad yvin. Bíam no chud aibre gáy an a bham. Bíam litrach a gá scríb am, bíam cúnta sí gá scrúdú am, bíam argad gá chór a bham. Níl más am moch nó. Ní obair fér a bheith scríb is a siar scríb. Dinne cór ciún is an cléirech, an fear le scríb. Ach ní fear é. Cahan sé a hílas a sláinte ag séhró a chuididir cera balí na hifiige. Ní héidir an ghuiigá, ní rihin an tuisce gá, ní scardan an ghrian dá. Híonn sé scáil na gréine an muithir a tráid, ní ceadmhacht dá dul a fechant amach an doras. Cléirech, fear le scríomh se a hé. Ní bhain an éon ní eile leis ach a fián is a bhudéil dú is a leabhar.
Well, tá goin greibh Eamonn Ceannt a láthair ag cruinú bhain leis an rialtas dúcha sin éidir sa dóiag, hí Parma Pierce agus ón Macnéile láthair ag an cruinú céanna. Ach le himach daimse is léir nach raibh mór an dócha sige as an gcóras politiúil. Mar sin tá goin mar hampla go lua in éidir sa trídeag, go nuair sé cruinú de chuid hin féin, go chóir gombeoch an tréáil ag gach fear éarnach a gcórsaí aram, agus fu dhearan na bliana sin bhí sé tuairt cainte de hin féin the failure of constitutionalism.
He was far before, Pearse in the sense that when Pearse in 1912 would be satisfied with home rule, Ceannt was way ahead of him on that one. He was thinking, this is going to be a separatist Ireland, there's going to be no home rule, or we're going to have an independent republic. And that's why he became so committed to the whole rebellion as well, That was kind of a feature of his personality. Once he set his mind to do something, there was nothing would stop him, It was all or nothing for Eamonn Ceannt.
In the presence of God, I, Eamonn Ceannt, do solemnly swear to do my utmost to establish the national independence of Ireland.
And that I will bear true allegiance to the Supreme Council of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and Government of the Irish Republic.
And that I will bear true allegiance to the Supreme Council of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and Government of the Irish Republic.
Chúis éisteach imráireachas na poblachta harta níos ag dóigh, mar hiag sé faoin am sin nós go leor daoine gur gáil le forréigen, gur gáil le lábhláidir le siir sin na tíre a bhaint amach.
And implicitly obey the Constitution of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and all my superior officers.
He's recruited into the IRB by Sean McDermott. One of McDermott's many functions is as a talent spotter, and he talent spots Ceannt and swears him into the IRB because he recognised that in this person were certain qualities that could be very, very useful to the IRB.
And that I will preserve inviolable the secrets of the organisation.
Fáilte.
Grumad seo. Is ítach an láid seo.
Eamonn Ceannt always said that his heart lay in the west of Ireland, where he was born. He often organised trips for members of the Gaelic League to the Aran Islands and to the Gaeltacht area of Spiddal. It was on one of these trips that he met the woman he would marry, Anya Brennan.
Anya joined the Gaelic League, and it was an excursion to Galway that they actually met. And she said that it was his beautiful whistling that attracted her. And she walked down to see who was doing all this he was musical in every way, in every sense. And she saw him, and she said that it was the way he looked at her that she immediately fell in love with him. It's actually a profound love story in a sense, Eamonn Ceannt's, because you can see in her writings that she totally loved this man, and she became treasurer of the local branch. He was secretary of the local branch, so they obviously had maybe that was a design by both of them. They could spend more time together. He proposed to her in 1903, and they were married in June 1905. And their one and only child was born a year later, Ronan.
Cuireadh sé an trúna thart chadáchas ó an céalaí, agus doch na seanaíne agus na daoine óga cruinéir. Beideach ammantaí uireach leig, ammantaí uirge. Agus cas a choilí seol dá íomneacht. Agus in san nám céanna, de ceann séirseacht bris amach. Fear ó dhéile bhí Eamonn Ceannt.
Leis céile chuoin úsle bhil an cúpla focail rá, muna bhiste libh. Tá sasnach tar éis furam cánach a chorchogam. Thug mé an tálas in Glan Gaeilge dó agus chur an bodach sasnach an furam a rashchogam. Níor thuig sé scríbhinn. Bhfuil ba sé fada go leor a fannacht go gur mise bearla ar scríbhinn sin. Má tá drogal ar chuoine mór an Gaeilge seasa amach an aon rialtais. Chatha gach mac mátharain an obair a chur rai ar malach hain. The rare ar dóram is ar dulla hain. Agus, mar a deir si de merla, if peaceful methods fail, then let there be war.
Throughout the first day of the rising, the British forces attempted to gain entrance to the South Dublin Union, and by mid-afternoon there were heavy losses on both sides. Eventually, the rebels' defences at the Rialto Gate were breached, and Ceannt ordered his forces to withdraw to the nurses' home, which was now heavily fortified.
Most of the fighting in the South Dublin Union eventually is reduced to the nurses' home. And you literally had people passing one side of a wall and on the other side. It's not actually literally hand-to-hand fighting in that sense, but it's up close and personal.
Hogley, can I have your attention, please? I have here a dispatch from the President of the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic. The rebellion is going well in Dublin, and the whole centre of the city is in the hands of the Republic, whose flag flies from the GPO. British ships are being attacked in the Irish Sea, and our German allies are expected to land at any moment. Reports show that the country is rising, and bodies of men from Kildare and Fingal have already reported in Dublin. We have lived to see an Irish Republic proclaimed. May we live to establish it firmly, and may our children enjoy the happiness and prosperity which freedom will bring. Signed on behalf of the Provisional Government, P.H. Pearce. Góma deir ar hlúna, agus táirmid buíochas gon tíorna don cháir. Nánam náir, agus an Vic, agus an Spurid Neve. Amen. Or nahar a táir neamh, go néfar danam, go dagad a riocht, go nientar do holler an talamar an nientar ar neamh.
Kent is more naturally a military man than someone like MacDonagh. He's fierce, he's tenacious, he's a man who will involve himself absolutely in the action when the bullets start flying, and he's there at the front. And his performance during Easter week in the South Dublin Union apart from Connolly, I think, at the GPO, is the most impressive of all the Dublin commandants. He puts his neck on the line, he leads from the front, the men admire him, and he does something else which none of the other Dublin commandants did during Easter week. He actually killed a man. He killed a British soldier in a fierce firefight in the nurses' home of the South Dublin Union. Not something that caused him much upset. After the surrender, one of the volunteers who was with him at the South Dublin Union, they're talking about it, and he comments, you could see the obvious satisfaction in his face as he related the story of how he had killed the man.
In early 1913, with the prospect of Home Rule looking more certain, the Ulster Volunteer Force was formed by Ulster Unionists determined to keep Ireland within the United Kingdom. In response, it was decided that a nationalist volunteer force be formed, and a meeting was held in Dublin in Wynn's Hotel to discuss the issue.
On the 10th of November 1913, Eamonn Ceannt got a letter from the O'Reilly inviting him to a meeting in Wynn's Hotel, and it was at that meeting it was decided that the volunteer movement would be founded. It took another couple of weeks for them to actually organise the whole I think the 25th of November, and they held a huge rally at the Rotunda Rink. 4,000 was the capacity, 7,000 turned up, and 3,000 joined immediately. Within 12 months, there was some 180,000 members.
Stoop your back to the burden. Keep your eye clear and your nerves steady. Be skilled in the arts of war, and there will be no war. Live plainly so that you may be strong and hardy. Be not given to vain boasting. Do not tarry long in taverns, nor take counsel with those who would betray you. Keep your own counsel. Be simple, be efficient, be noble, and the world of Ireland is yours.
Óglaigh na hÉireann, you have signed up to defend our homeland. This is our land, and it is worth fighting for. Tá sé de dhulgasar in the hospaint, go bhfuil drown beag gael an fós nach bhfuil ceannatha ag ór seán bhuí. Tá sé de cheart ag gach gael atá na gael ar an mahógáil, agus é héna olbhú go lá an chaha.
It wasn't just the Gaels who were readying themselves for war. The Great War broke out in Europe in August 1914, and the IRB resolved to stage a rising before it was over. A military council was formed, and Eamonn Ceannt was appointed to it, along with Patrick Pearse and Joseph Plunkett. These three had been handpicked by Tom Clark and Sean McDiarmid, who had been steering the drive towards insurrection for years.
Well, Eamonn Ceannt, once he joined the military council and he became, we'll say, one of the architects of the rebellion, the meetings that they were holding were becoming more technical in the sense of when the rebellion was going to happen. Not if a rebellion was going to happen, when it was going to happen. And Anya records that in January 1916, the IRB started to hold their military council, the military council meetings in their home in Two Dolphins Barn. Ceannt, while he was a committed father and a loving husband, you can see that in his letters to her and indeed in her recordings of him, and a totally committed dad, but he felt that for the future generations of Ireland, for his own children and for his grandchildren's sake, that something had to be done, that they had to control their own destiny in a sense. And he felt that this was the only way forward. You know, he had seen Home Rule over the years, that the promise of it being pushed out and pushed out. He saw what was termed the Curragh Mutiny, that the officers said they would not enforce Home Rule in Ulster. He saw the Ulster Unionists under Carson sign against Home Rule, some of them in their own blood. So he knew that this was not going to happen. There was only one thing that was going to bring this to the table. This is what he felt, that the only thing that was going to bring this, to put an Irish independent movement on the table, was actually a rebellion.
It's just there for yourself and Ronan's protection.
But what if Ronan finds it?
He won't find it. They're really starting to crack down on us. If we don't protect ourselves, who will?
Tá sé harafed dachar domsa mar ar clinne an méid sin a hiiscint. Conas sa béidir le fér le dúlga sí clinne le páistí óga an chuntóir sin a ghlacha. Is minic a dúirt John McGahern Lumsa an scríóir go raibhdar ar aon déanamh le lucht Islam a láthair na huaire a cheapan go bhfuil áits ránathe acu sna fleachais agus gur féidir casa ón tíl seo go dtí an síl eile. Mar tá ceist céanna le chur is dócha láthair na huaire faoi roinntá daoine atá sásta Ibert an tais sanna dhéanamh a ggóthíochs eile. Agus béidir go raibh nós na díagachta agus na seanna creadúintí níos láidsre na bhír sin ná mar atá in éarnig na linne seo.
They're just one.
Throughout Easter week, British reinforcements arrived in Dublin and the authorities set about crushing the rebel strongholds. On Thursday, British troops launched a major attack on the South Dublin Union, and Ceannt's headquarters in the nurses' home came under heavy fire.
There is no question of surrender. We fight to the last man. Why did you not hold your position? Who told you to retreat?
The order came in through Mullen. Captain Mullen received his order directly from Commandant Brewer.
Where's Brewer?
He's holding the barricade. I think he's been hit.
Cathal Brewer is almost a replica of Ceannt and vice versa. I think one person described Cathal Brewer as a hard hater of England, and so was Ceannt. And Cathal Brewer is in the thick of it. He's caught up in a firefight, and I think it's about 25 wounds to him, at least I think 9 of which were serious.
There was a huge barricade about 8 foot erected, and one of them lobbed a Mills bomb over it and wounded Cathal Brewer. He was wounded at that stage. But Brewer dragged himself away from the barricade and he started to sing God Save Ireland.
Save Ireland, said they all, when they're on the scaffold high, or the battlefield we die.
And between every verse, he'd fired a few shots at the barricade. And this kind of inspired Ceannt immediately, who went to his aid, and he said, we're taking the barricade back and we're forcing these people back. And that's what they did. It was a renewed attack on behalf of the rebels, and they actually forced their way back down the corridor. They just kept firing until the British pulled back.
The Sachnamacht na rudí bhó san éiríach Éire leob. Bhí siad an an ar na Breataine a chuineal amachas agus dan siad a shellah nonad sin go dtí deire an éiríach.
Guns ablaze, or the whole city's on fire.
They mean to end us. Even if it means burning the whole country.
When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I read of ancient free men. For Greece and Rome they bravely stood, 300 men and 3 men. And then I prayed I yet might see our fetters rent in twain, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again.
Commandant.
On Sunday morning, about 11 o'clock, Tom McDonough and Father Aloysius, OFM Cap, came up the street with a white flag over them. Walked up the James Street. We saw them, and of course there was immediately some. We were excited. They came up and admitted, and they went privately had a talk with Kent.
Commandant Ceannt.
Father, what do you have to report?
I have correspondence from Connolly and Pearce. They wish us to consider our position.
And you've agreed to this?
Eamonn, Tá Cahar Scriste. I've been through. From Boland's Mills, Sackville Street is down.
That may be so. But I've men in there that are willing to die for their country. I'll take a vote on it. And if they want to continue the fight, I'm willing to lead them.
Nuair fuair Ceannt an tardó go a chearcó géile. Is dóigh gur a drogla ar é dhéanamh mar san áit ar a sesin níor a búlsa na rebelliúna.
Ahogli, I have here a dispatch from headquarters. In order to prevent the further slaughter of Dublin citizens, and in the hope of saving the lives of our followers now surrounded and hopelessly outnumbered, the members of the provisional government present at headquarters have agreed to an unconditional surrender. And the commandants of the various districts in the city and country will order their commands to lay down arms. It's signed by Patrick Pearse, President of the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic, and Mr. James Connolly, Commandant of the Dublin Brigade.
This is the dilemma which all the commandants had when they received the surrender order. Not just the commandants, but the rank and file. What did you do? Everything in Kent's being revolted against surrender. For him, surrender was death, really. And many of the rank and file were absolutely shattered by it. You had men throwing rifles on the ground. You had grown men sitting in tears. Kent is torn, therefore, between his natural instinct never to give in, but also the fact that he's receiving orders from his commanding officer.
When I hear that old Tom Clark, who spent 15 years in British prisons for the love of his country, when I hear that he has consented to this surrender, I know that there is no shame in the men of the 4th Battalion following his lead.
Without that unity, they'd never have got the Rising going. They went into the Rising united, and he felt that they had to come out of the Rising united. This unity would have destroyed the credibility of the Rising. And I think probably at that stage he's thinking towards the future and posterity. What will posterity think of how we behaved on this day? So he goes along with the surrender, but he didn't like it.
So then it's decided. We surrender unconditionally. No man should attempt to escape or desert their post. Collect your weapons and eat what rations you have left. We will meet for assembly at the main gate in half an hour. And men, can I just say how proud I am to have led such brave soldiers.
When the surrender comes, Kent remains the man that he had always been. And from his point of view, there was no false chivalry at the end. When the British officer came up to him to take the surrender, the British Army officer surprisingly extends his hand, and Kent refuses to shake it. And when the British Army officer says, "Where's the rest of your men? It's only 44 here." Kent says, "This is all I had. But we gave a very good account of ourselves during this week, and we held up your army for a week."
Ceannt and his men were marched to Richmond Barracks, where Ceannt was identified by DMP detectives as one of the leaders of the rebellion. He was court-martialed and sentenced to death. On the 7th of May, he was transferred to Kilmainham Jail, where he was to be executed at dawn the following day.
I bríosún chilhhainán, an 7 lád a bhealtaine, 1960. Dom Joaquín Vocht Rónán. Ó na ahra táirtí básta áile mairech son na héireann. Tór arrowha chud a bháthraín. Go gcuideadí an bhortaí, agus go dtuga sé saol fada faoi thó agus faoi waise riomh réan. Go séireadí éire. Áine, mo bhean. Cuine é seo a gcuimhne ar mo áine a bhílach rá. Aber le Rónán go bhfuil mo fáil bháis son na héireann. Nuair I theochas cíl agus tuiscint aige, tuigigh sé an méid sin. My dearest Anya, my poor little sweetheart of how many years ago. Ever my comforter. God comfort you now. What can I say? I die a noble death for Ireland's freedom. Bíoch mishnachad a storín mochrí. Tóg de chean agus bíoch faide ad go bheic mi de chéile a ríis, I bhlachis dé. Tusa, mise, agus Rónán beag bocht. Adieu. Eamonn.
When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I read of the ancient free men for Greece and Rome, who bravely stood. 300 men and 3 men.
Looking back at 1916 and the leaders of 1916, and Eamonn Ceannt in particular, which I can speak of, I feel a great sorrow for them. I feel they were totally committed to the ideals of an Irish Republic, of an independent Ireland, of an honest Ireland, an Ireland that would make proud among the nations of the earth. That was their legacy. That's what they wanted to achieve. And in a sense they did to a certain extent. But this year, in the 1916 commemoration at Eyre Square in Galway, a lady stood on the footpath beside me, watching the whole thing being prepared, and she said to me, she just turned and she said, you know, they died for nothing, she said. She was very upset at what's happened in the country today, and this is what she was coming from, like most people are in Ireland today. And immediately she said it a second time, they died for nothing. That's the way as I see it. And for that moment I agreed with her. They actually did die for nothing because their ideals seemed to be totally ignored. And then the piper started to play the pipes. And immediately I could feel the hair standing on the back of my neck. I thought of Eamonn Ceannt immediately. He was such a wonderful, fantastic piper and such a wonderful, fantastic Irishman. And I just turned to her and I said, look, I said, I agree that you might feel that they died for nothing given what's happened in the country. But now more than ever, I said, we have to acknowledge those men and the sacrifice they made all those years ago in the Stonebreakers Yard in 1916. Now more than ever, we're going to have to remember them with respect and dignity and take this country back and make it what they died for, and make people think about the good of the country, the good of the people, and not the good of the individual.
And then I prayed I yet might see our fetters rent in twain, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again.
Ireland has shown she is a nation. In the years to come, Ireland will honour those who risked all for her honour at Easter 1916.
Squad!